and go live. Hello, hello. Hello, everybody. How are you? I hope this is working. It's nice to see a bunch of you already in the chat, already in the stream. I really kind of hustled to try and fix all of my streaming problems today. If you tried to watch the last stream that I did with Nick Hill, there was some serious video problems. And yeah, I think I have it mostly resolved. I hope so. I hope that the stream holds up. I'm on a completely new system. I'm on the Mac Mini, M1 Mac Mini. And this is my first go with it. And it's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know much right now, other than it seems to be working. And I hope that the stream quality is reasonable and all that kind of stuff. Keith Body, hello. How are you? Lucas, how are you? Dylan, how are you? Nick Hill, the Bacon Wizard, Dylan, Keith. What's going on here in the chat? It feels like waiting for a TV show that only runs once a week in the day. Keith, you know it. This is the best show on TV right now. It's like very highly produced. Anyhow, I hope you are all very well. It's nice to see you all. And looking and sounding good. Awesome. Thanks, Dylan, for the little feedback. For those of you who may not know, I think most of you know, but this is Bunn on Demand, BOD. This is a live show where we dive a little bit deeper into the popular topics that come up on the channel and in the surrounding social medias and messages and all that kind of stuff. We generally talk about baritone guitars, producing low jams, producing low music, and being an artist in the world of low, heavy, and hopefully artsy music. I like artsy music. I know a lot of people are kind of like, ooh, poo-poo on the artsy stuff. Also, I have the chat like kind of really close to the camera here. So hopefully this makes a little bit more sense and is a little bit more personal today. But yeah, today's topic is tunings, settings, and options. And like I say, this is a bit of a deeper dive into the things that come up frequently on the channel and surrounding media. And just more of a discussion surrounding those things. Typically, the format of how we go about things here is we dive a little bit into a topic. Topic's broken up into 3 sections. And so we go into a topic, then we go into the chat, we go into a topic, go into the chat, and then we just have a good old jamboree chat-orama at the end. Totally cool to go a little bit later tonight. The show itself is about an hour long, the topics and whatnot, and then the chat is kind of just a chat. And I don't have any other plans tonight, so I'm keen to go to 11 if you guys want to go to 11. If it's dead at 10 or dead at 10:30, then we'll shut her down then. We'll just feel it out. Tyler Adams, thank you so much for the super chat. It really helps. Which brings to mind, if you like what's going on here, you can help things along with stickers and super chats. And if that's not your thing, there are things that you can find, links that you can find down in the description of the video that help the channel along. You know, I do all of this on my own steam. I'm happy to do it, but any kind of help really helps. So I really appreciate everything, all the help that I get from everyone. It goes a really long way. Like, you know, I had to get a new computer because the computer I've been using has been incredibly problematic, and, you know, technical issues keep popping up because I use a lot of old things because I'm not a rich guy, but a lot of the help through all of the various ways people help has been helping to do that stuff, to modernize a little bit. And hopefully we can do a little bit more modernization and get up to speed. But anyhow, today's topic, tunings, settings, and options. We're going to get into that in a second. Before we get into that, I just want to bring up a few, kind of general topics or general, info pieces. The number one thing, check this out. Number one is I have like this all set up here. Bam! No, it defaults to the Nick Hill channel. But number one thing I kind of want to bring up is my pal Sean Heath. He lives in Germany, but he is a North American living in Germany. But he did this cool video, and I've shared it in social media.
Hey guys, and welcome.
I won't play it. Ugh. There we go. Oh, I'm making a lot of noise on the mic there. But he shared this cool video, and it's about, we brought this topic up in the streams a couple weeks back, and it was about string tension and having more string after the nut versus less after the nut. So he came up with this little experiment to try and measure the differences in that, if there was a difference and all that kind of stuff. And it's a very rough kind of experiment. The tolerances are not perfect, but nonetheless, it illustrates the point, illustrates what's going on with more string after the nut. So if you're interested in knowing more about that and seeing it from a slightly more scientific point of view, his channel, Sean Heath, if you just, search that on YouTube, you'll find him. And it's a great video explaining string tension after the nut. I've also shared some links to that in the various social medias, including the YouTube panel or YouTube dashboard or whatever it is, like the community post thing. So you can find that there. Pretty cool topic. The second thing, where's my doc? Where's my notes? Oh, you can see my notes. Second thing is Discord. I don't have it. I can't put it up on the screen, but my homie Nick Hill and I, we are getting set to launch a Discord. We have a bunch of it sorted out. We have a bunch of folks helping us, who are going to help us kind of get it off the ground, get it up and running. I hope to get to that over the next week, and it's going to be sort of a combined Bunn, Nick Hill Discord. And at this point, it's more of an experiment, but it hopes to alleviate people's disinterest in things like Facebook groups or, proprietary media like that. It is a proprietary thing. It is Discord, but maybe a little less obtrusive than something like Facebook or whatever. It's going to be an option and an experiment, different than the typical. And a lot of people requested it. So that's in work, a little Discord group for all of us to hang out in a more personal way. At the moment, I do have the Facebook group. It's a private group, which is Baritone Obsessed. It's quite popular group. So if that's all you need, then you can find, baritone stuff there. But this group on Discord seeks to be a little wider. But it will have a baritone focus as well. Anyhow, and the final thing is channel videos. Few people have asked, it's like, hey, Bunn, what's up with all this live streaming and why, what's happening with the channel videos or your produced content? I prefer the produced content. Well, I've been doing the live streaming to kind of give myself a little bit of time to do better videos. I was kind of rushing to finish videos, and I'm like, oh, let's try and do the live streaming so that things are happening every week. And I'm not going a whole month before I publish a video, because some videos take a really long time to make. My work situation is in the process of changing, and I'm going out of working and into this stuff full time, but it's still in transition. So there is produced videos still working, still happening, but the live streams are kind of just to pick up the slack in between. This channel is not becoming a live stream focused channel. However, I hope to do the live stream every week because it's a good time. So there you have that. We're going to get into things. So it's Friday night. If you're drinking beers, crack a beer. I'm drinking some Liquid Death here. I don't know if you know Liquid Death, but Liquid Death allows you to murder your thirst. It's sparkling water. It's delicious and it has a skull on it, so it's heavy. You know it's heavy. heavy riffs come out of drinking Liquid Death. Not sponsored, but I would like to get sponsored by Liquid Death because that would be super fun. It's just like the heaviest sparkling water on earth. So silly. Anyway, okay. Just gonna do a quick little hello here. Lots of people in the stream. My amp goes to 11. Lots of comments. Just a word on comments is that conversations in the comments are highly, what do you call it? Like it's really okay to have inter-comment conversations, get to know each other, help each other out if people feel like they're being left behind on certain topics that we're covering. You know, that is totally cool, 100% cool. Get into it, be pals. You all have a lot in common. We all love guitars. And yeah, it is very cool. So we're going to get into it here. Hello. Well, I'm just going to say a few more hellos. The Bacon Wizard, Cosman, how are you? I hope you are well. Mr. Aiden, how are you? Baritone Cult, hello. The Bacon Wizard, Keith Body, Tyler Adams, Danny P. Awesome. You guys are all jamming. Thomas Powell, how are you, brother? I hope all is well. And Renato, how are you? Good morning. Yes, you're on a very far away, and I'm glad you could make it. Because yeah, the time doesn't really line up very well for everyone. But it's Friday night here in North America, and it's party time in North America. So I hope it can be party time no matter where you are. Just like be creative, make it party time. Low tuning party time. Thick water. I have not tried thick water, but I have definitely tried Liquid Death. Not sponsored, but I want to be sponsored because it's just the most fun thing. Anyhow, first topic today is tunings. Very, very common thing that comes up a lot is, hey, Bunn, have you ever tried open tunings, or what open tunings are your favorite tunings, or alternate tunings, these sorts of things? Or what alternate tunings should I try? Should I use on baritone? Or what open tunings are cool for baritone? Or what should I tune a baritone to? All that kind of stuff. Tunings. Big topic. And I think there's a couple different ways to approach the topic of tunings. Oh, excuse me. For myself, just to like get it out of there, I'm a standard tuning guy. So guitar tuned in fourths with the second and the third tuned a third apart. But if we're talking about 6-string guitars, I only talk about 6-string guitars, but just to be clear. But I'm a standard tuning guy, and I have reasons. We'll get into the reasons. But, you know, there's two things to consider if you're going to get into this open tunings thing or alternate tunings thing. The first thing to know about alternate tunings or open tunings is just because it's a baritone, just because you're tuned super low, there's nothing special about that. Just try different alternate tunings, try different open tunings, and a lot of them will work. You'll know right away which ones don't work according to the kind of music that you're trying to make. One thing about the Liquid Death is it brings up these deathly burps. But open tunings. So something to really consider with these open tunings or these alternate tunings, however you go about it, is if you're going to do it, you got to kind of think about, do you play live or are you only doing this stuff in the studio? And if you're doing it in the studio, do you ever plan to take it live, or maybe can it possibly ever be taken live? And how many tunings are you going to get into? I do know people, like one of my favorite bands ever, they're called Mare, and they don't exist anymore, but I'll try and bring it up here, Mare Bandcamp. And bam, self-titled. And anyhow, Mare, amazing band, highly influential, probably a huge push in terms of the Bunn sound. I wouldn't say that I sound like Mare, but definitely a huge influence on me. We'll switch to desktop here. So this is Mare. You can find it on Bandcamp. Tons of alternate tunings, like almost every song. There might be 2 tunes that are the same tuning, but generally it's a different tuning for every jam. Playing live, like in the studio, who cares? But playing live, they're tuning in between every song, and sometimes for quite a while. And for some people, that can be, like audience-wise, that can be a bit of a buzzkill. Maybe not. For me, I don't like to tune as much, like for very long between songs. I think tuning is important and you should take the time needed to tune. But if you're doing these wild, like huge sweeps of tuning in between songs and it's taking a while, you may need a device, like some kind of thing, some kind of entertainment in between songs to carry the energy of the crowd or whatever. Just something to think about if you're going to get into the alternate tunings or a bunch of open tunings. Having a strategy in the outset is a good idea. And one of the reasons why I don't bother with alternate tunings at all. Most of the music that I make, I have either played out live or I will play out live at some point. And I just want to make things simple for myself. But not to discourage people from exploring these things. You can do cool things. Mare has some incredible sounds, and like I say, most of their material is different tuning. One other way you can do it is with multiple guitars, but that compounds. Something to think about again, if you're going to get into these alternate tunings, and you're like, oh, I'll just have a guitar for every tuning. Well, what about backup guitars? Like for me, I have standard tuning. It's G standard, low G standard for foreigns, and low E standard, E1 standard for Wetlands, low A standard for Vens, and that's just it. Like each project has its tuning and that's it. And there are 2 guitars assigned to every single project, and that's it. And I show up to the shows with 2 guitars and I go for it. And it's no problem. If there's a string breakage or a real problem with a guitar, I can switch to a guitar and it's not an issue. There's no logistical nightmare there, or no delay from song to song, no significant delay from song to song with it, like extensive retuning or anything like that. So first thing to think about in terms of, this alternate tuning stuff is how do you plan to go forward as an artist? Are you going to go out there and play gigs? If you're going to play gigs, how are you going to accommodate the alternate tunings? And if you're going to do alternate tunings, maybe pick one. I'm not telling you how you should do it. It's just stuff to be thoughtful of, especially if maybe you're the artist and you don't really have a band backing it yet. If you have, or rather, if you don't have a band backing it yet and you have all these tunings, it's like, oh, who's going to be into that? It's like, oh man, I don't want to deal with all your tunings. If the music is good enough or engaging enough, if it really draws people to it, like Mare did, they had no problems getting people to play music with them, to get a bass player or whatever. So first thing to think about, the logistics of alternate tunings, multiple tunings. Second thing is, let's see here. Oh yeah. Second thing is knowing your sort of scales. So classical church scales, you know, people call them the church scales because they were, I guess they were devised for the church, or they became popular in the church, or whatever, like Western churches. But classical scales, you know, the 7 positions, like 7 modes of the major scale. And knowing what those things are is a good thing. I think if you know all that stuff, alternate tunings are not as big a deal, like are not a thing that you really need to be creative, or for creative options. And it goes beyond just the church scales. Then there's obviously the symmetrical scales, which is the diminished and the whole tone scale, whole half tone scale, etc. Symmetrical scales. And then there is the pentatonic stuff, pentatonic major, pentatonic minor, and there's a very, very, very close similarity to the blues scale there, blues scales there. Just the only difference is the flat 5, really. But yeah, so if you know those things, the deeper you dive into those things, you may not really need to explore the open tunings. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You should explore open tunings and alternate tunings because it's fun. Have fun for sure. But in terms of thinking about the logistics and moving forward and maybe playing shows or maybe playing with other people, all that kind of stuff, you know, being diverse in tunings can be a problem. And it's not for everyone, but it is for some people. But if you know more about the systems of the guitar, you may be able to kind of just get what you're looking for just with the guitar tune standard. But yeah, don't limit yourself just because it might seem fashionable or it might be poo-poo to somebody or whatever. I'm just bringing up the topic. And a lot of people ask it a lot. They're like, you know, what are your favorite alternate tunings? My answer is always none. And what alternate tunings or open tunings should I use for baritone? My answer to that is whichever ones are fun. Have fun with them and all that, but be mindful of how you're going to move forward with it. That's all. So I'm sure addressing it here will not be the last time I address this thing, but we can have a little bit of a conversation about it. I noticed, so I'm done with that part of the topic. We're going to move on next to settings, but I'm going to grab a few of the comments here. It looks like it's a nice, healthy comment conversation. From the Australian Alps, didn't even know where the Alps, there were Alps in Australia. Oh, wow. Liquid Death. Are they from the Australian Alps or the Austrian Alps? Austrian Alps. Yeah, Austrian. It's east or in Europe, northern Europe. So yeah, where are the Alps in Australia? That would be super weird. Imagine they just like it was like that TV show Lost. Just suddenly there were Alps in Australia. But whatchamacallit, this alternate tuning stuff. Comments. Bunn cables. Yes. Cosman made me some cables. This is going to jump around a little bit, but Cosman made me some cables. He is the guy. Marauder Music on reverb.com is his shop. He makes electronical. That's a new word that I just made up right now. He makes electronical things, very professional electronical things. And he made me some cables and I'm stoked to get them. I should have them arrived facility. Yeah, they're here in Canada. I saw that in the tracking today. Thank you, Cosman. I'm stoked to get them. Tyler Adams, Guinness and hard cider. Get into it. So difference between, so Thomas Powell says he digs all fourths. So that's an interesting one. Getting rid of the third between the second and the third string and just everything in fourths. And I guess that would be kind of like how a bass is tuned, and ain't nothing wrong with that. You can play, you know, you have way more modularity of chord shapes in terms of standard chord shapes. But there might be other chords that are suddenly difficult to grab, but you may have more access to ringing chords like open strings, adding different kinds of open strings to your chord shapes, which is always a sexy addition to any chord. Open strings. It's the Bunn. That's the Bunn way right there. I think that is also the Thomas Powell way. Just came across it today. RG. Alexander. Hello, Alexander. I hope you're well. Have I ever had the chance to try the RG? I don't know that model. RG 5320. Curious about it. I think it's a 25.5. Is it not? I only play baritone. Well, I shouldn't say I only play baritones, but in the last like 10 years, I've only bought baritone guitars. But if it's a sick guitar, if it's an RG, it's probably sick. RGs are sick. So yeah, pretty easy sell on RGs for me. I think they're awesome. I do have one standard scale RG because you need to have at least one. And Bacon Wizard, he uses open C major on a standard scale, almost Devin Townsend, and want to try that down in G1. Yeah, it would be cool. My roommate is also, I think currently, or my housemate, my buddy Brian, he lives upstairs. I think he's in a C major tuning as well. He's really into Devin Townsend. And usually when I hear him riffing, it sounds pretty friggin' good. That's your E string for okay. You guys are having intercommental kind of stuff here. To the current conversation, hip shot can help to switch between alternate tunings quickly. So Connor shares a little tip here about the hip shot extenders, and states that they can help you switch between alternate tunings a little more quickly. I'm not sure exactly how, but maybe worth talking to him further about it and maybe taking a look at the product. Sounds interesting. Two model, all tunings everywhere. I'm not sure what that means, Thomas Powell. Thomas Powell is talking about one way to model tunings ever. One thing is like the Line 6 Variax, and I think actually Peavey had a multiple tuning guitar as well, and they were digital retuning kind of things. The Variax still does it, and my buddy Danny Cross has done a few videos on retuning his Variax. He's a Variax player, and he has had great success with that. Just playing regular, you know, a regular feeling guitar and tune it down to F, and it's no big deal. It sounds really good. Much better than the drop. Seems anyways. 12-string bridge options. Batard Gluton. How are you, brother? I hope all is well. 12-string bridge options. Should maybe message Dude Craft Guitars, DOOD, Dude Craft, because he makes a lot of 12-string guitars. He's built a ton of 12-string guitars, so he would know the whole swath of options when it comes to 12-string guitars. So maybe a great place to start. I hope he's an awesome guy too. He's like really easy to talk to and all of that. Or bring like 6 guitars with Evertunes. I'm not sure, Danny P. How would Evertunes be? Yeah, I guess if they were all already tuned. Right. Yeah, it might be a benefit, but yeah, you got to bring 6 guitars. Players can find a way. Yes, Keith Body speaks the truth. people find a way to be creative, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you're me, I would never play in a band with more than one tuning, and I would never play with people who change tunings. Personally, you know, that's my whole thing. I'm like, pick a tuning, pick something, and let's go. So there are those people. I'm just putting myself into a category. So there are people like me, and then there are people who are wild, and they're just like, I don't care. I'm just going to do a million tunings. And so lots of comments here. I'm going to jump ahead because it's very small and it's hard to read. And I want to get into the next topic here. If the Variax is actually a good guitar, seems like a great solution. Yeah, the Variax, definitely worth taking a look at. The Stevic model, the style of it is not for everyone, but it is a nicely made guitar. I've played it a few times, and I haven't fussed with the tuning options of it. I just played the guitar just as it is. And it plays really well, and it feels really nice. Like, it feels like a quality guitar. So definitely a cool option, something to explore if you have the opportunity to rent it or borrow it or buy it and return it, all that kind of stuff. So Thomas Powell, but for a little out of my range. Oh, okay. Is the longest. Yeah, the Stevic is a 27-inch baritone, and doesn't really matter though, because you can digitally retune it. The only thing is it needs to be loud enough that you can't hear the strings like with the music, because it's really it's really weird when they're not in a harmonic tuning. But anyhow, okay, we're going to move along to settings. Another little topic here that is very common in the Bunnosphere. This is probably a common thing in Nick Hill's comments and social media as well, and the rest of us. But you know, there's so much to talk about with settings, and a lot of folks, I think maybe they're usually at the beginning of their journey or closer to the beginning of their journey, are going to be asking, like, what are your settings? Share your settings, share your presets, all that kind of stuff. And I do share presets. We're going to get into presets a little bit later in this topic. It's not going to take that long to get there. But settings, I think before thinking about settings, I think it's a good idea to think about what it is you want to do. And if you know, I have a lot of conversations with folks who are like, you know, I asked that question. I'm like, what do you want to do first? And they're like, I want to do this, that, and that. You know, I want to do all of these different things. I'm like, well, you know, there's no answer for you. I apologize. So yeah, the first thing to know is, like, what do I want to do, and pick something. It's a good idea, because if you kind of focus for at least for a little bit, then you get a lot more mastery within a certain space. And then moving on from there, you can take that mastery, take those findings of really kind of dwelling in a space, and move a lot of that forward in a useful way. So it's a good idea to kind of focus a little bit, just for a little bit, on one thing. What do you want to do? What kind of sound do you want to go for before you're worried about settings? And then, in addition to settings, understand where you're at with what you have. Like, the beautiful thing now is we got plugins and we got all this digital stuff that is very affordable. So really all you need is a guitar to get started, and the rest of it you can kind of fill in with plugins and software. And it's finally all quite good. You know, we live in a brilliant time. But if you don't have the things that are going to get you close, where the things need to be hacked, like, let's say, actually, this is even a bad example, but let's say you have a Roland jazz chorus and you want to play brutal metal. There is an option for you. And it doesn't really matter what kind of guitar you have. Like some people would be like, oh, you need to have a humbucker guitar or whatever. If you have a semi hollow body guitar and a Roland jazz chorus, you can still play death metal. You just need to get the right pedal. But there's a good chance it's never going to get all the way there, but it might be good enough to fill the gap for a little bit. The thing about getting a pedal for something like that as a stopgap, as a means to a temporary end, is that pedal may not be very useful as you climb the ladder. You can sell the pedal though, so it's not like it's a dead investment. I would say if you're going to do something like that, it's like, I want to do this one thing. What do I need to do it? Or do I have the things that are going to allow me to do it? And, try and fill in the gaps there. But yeah, knowing what you want to do and starting with something that is kind of in the ballpark. It doesn't have to be expensive, but a guitar, if you know about computers, like if you're comfortable enough with computers, you can do the whole plug-in thing. I've been quite surprised in the last year or so to discover that in 2021, there's more people now than I remember who are not comfortable with computers, which is interesting because computers are a very important part of life. But maybe that's why. Maybe people are like, computers are everywhere. I want to be nowhere computers are. But if you're comfortable with computers, you can probably find the tools. And I would definitely, just look at what your heroes are using and try and find the equivalent digital alternatives to those things. And so if you have a tonal goal, B, kind of a rough, reasonable starting place of the things you need to do it, then the settings aren't that important. It's pretty easy to set things to get a good sound. If you're looking for the exact sound of a particular artist, a good way to do that is presets. And the cool thing about presets, so the quick negative side of presets is they can be a crutch. Like if you don't dive into what the devices do and how they interact in what order, I would definitely recommend to spend some time just like getting some ears for it. You don't need to know. You don't need to scientifically know what everything is, but just experiment. Like if I do this, if I do this, if I do this, what happens? What happens? What happens? It's good. But a plus on presets, a lot of times they can get you pretty close to what your favorite artist might sound like, or I don't know, maybe they're not even your favorite artist. But another useful thing about presets is a lot of times you can look at what they did. So you can be like, oh, this is the order of operations and devices, and these are the sort of settings, but like, try and experiment with those presets in terms of what's going on, like sort of dissect the preset. I think maybe the best thing about presets is being able to dissect them, to look at what's happening and then kind of reverse engineer it and better understand what's going on if you don't understand that stuff very well. It's a good example piece. So settings, you may find that people are sometimes reluctant to kind of just give up their settings. And I think that a lot of times they're reluctant because they're like, it's not, my settings aren't that big a deal. Like you can do this. And some people have impatience with it for that result, like I have presets available. Like, I'm even doing more. I'm doing some for foreigns right now. They're not out yet, but these are the Wetlands ones. I sell presets, and presets are cool to get inside of a very specific tone, but and maybe a good starting place for your own tone to move into a different spot, move it into your own spot. But, and to understand how tone is built. But I would definitely say jump into, you know, figuring out what things do in what order and how they relate to each other. And you'll be so much better off. And even then, when you do get a preset, you'll be able to do so much more with it. Because then the preset is just like a rough starting place that's it maybe in a good starting place, as opposed to just being like this thing, you turn it on, it does something, but you don't know why it does what it's doing. So you, in a way, you're even more powerless and you kind of rely on that. Mr. Daryl. Thank you very much, brother. I hope you are well. Your birthday's coming up back this February in about almost 20 days, a little more than 20 days. Very good to see you in the comments. Thank you, brother. Yeah, my brother says, he's comfy with computers a little bit. Hey, he's, Daryl happens to be a software architect, you know, on the highest level of high levels, which is pretty sick. I would love to develop some kind of awesome tone stuff with you, Daryl, but I don't know. That might be another lifetime. Yeah. Anyway, settings. So if people are reluctant to share settings with you or kind of a bit snarky about settings, usually it's because they're like, you know, you can figure it out. I believe in you. But I'm usually pretty upfront about things. Like not upfront, but pretty friendly about that topic. I'm not ever going to push people away, but yeah, definitely discover your things and, you know, watch Nick Hill's videos. Nick Hill goes deep into, into Helix things. Check this out. Nick Hill also has preset packs. First of all, bam, tons of them. Awesome. But Nick Hill also has, what are we doing here? Bam, Wetlands. No. I guess I might have closed it. Bam. Oh, there we go. Nick Hill's YouTube channel. So if we go to Nick Hill's YouTube channel, he has tons and tons of videos on like dialing in tones and whatnot. And a lot of it he does on the Helix, but the ideas that he, like the moves that he makes in the actual device are very similar to what you'd do on any device like it. Like the kinds of settings that he will do on a boost or a tube screamer in the Helix are probably the same kinds of settings you do on any tube screamer. Same thing with amp settings, same thing with cabinet settings, et cetera, et cetera. The Helix environment is just a friendly environment to work in and it sounds good. But a lot of the ideas expressed in it, a guy like Nick Hill, who is sharing, his knowledge of how to put sounds together in there, you can take that knowledge forward and, use it in other devices. It totally works. So, let me see here. I think that's about it for settings. Oh yeah, with settings, I think, things to focus on is like what the device is, like what the purpose of the device is. Like a distortion pedal and a boost pedal are different. Why are they different? What do they do? So understanding devices, understanding different types of tube amp designs and why they are favored for this kind of music or that kind of music. So understand the devices, then understand the parameters. Most guitar players I know don't know how a guitar amp EQ functions. Not that you need to know precisely scientifically, but get an idea what's going on. I'll give you a little tip though. Most EQ designs for guitar amps, the EQ setting set to 10 is the true neutral state. They'll, a company like Mesa Boogie, they'll try and voice it so that the 5 is pseudo neutral, but the way that the EQ functions in a guitar amp typically, not always, but most of the time, is totally wound out is the EQ doing nothing. And then as the EQ comes down, it cuts. It dampens certain frequencies. So yeah, little tip there. Unless it's a parametric EQ or a graphic EQ, then it's a completely different story. But yeah, know the devices, like what the devices are, what they're favored for. Try to understand the parameters, what the parameters do and how the parameters interact and how the parameters will influence other things down the line. And then the order of devices. So why do people put boosts in front of guitar amps? And maybe why do people not use distortion pedals in the effects loop, etc.? There's all these things to consider and also to experiment with. You can just do these things and see what's going on. Use your ears. So yeah, settings, definitely try and deconstruct it, try and experiment. You don't need the greatest gear in the world to do these experiments. The differences in sounds will, present themselves, and it can be fun. You can also discover things that are maybe unorthodox that are really cool for what you're doing. So just do your thing. Need time for some Liquid Death, not sponsored, but I really want to be sponsored. So yeah, it is perfect for murdering your thirst. I love it. Anyway, okay, let's get into some comments. If you can, oh yeah. So Keith Body, he thinks it's pretty funny. Best line ever. If you can buy it and return it. So this is an option that a lot of people don't really consider. And I think if you have a huge retailer in your city, and even a lot of online retailers now are offering this as a feature, as a buying feature, because try before you buy with musical instruments is a very important thing. But yeah, there's usually no problem in terms of like buying something, trying it out, whether it be for the purpose of actually owning it or maybe just to get acquainted with it. Yeah, you can buy things and return them. And if you're doing it on a credit card, it might not actually cost you very much. It'll cost you something in the end, but buying a $3,000 item on a credit card with the express purpose of returning it, you might pay a $25 restocking fee or maybe a $50 restocking fee. And maybe there's shipping involved. Not sure. Everybody's situation is going to be different, but definitely an option. It's kind of like renting. It's very similar to renting. And sometimes these items that go out and come back end up in the rental department, at least here in Toronto or in Canada. There's Long McQuaid. They're a big musical instruments retailer here. And that often is the case when things are purchased and returned. Depending on the state of the return, it may end up in rentals. And usually rentals generate way more revenue for the retailer in the long run. So it's a longer game that they got to play. But yeah, that is an option that you can do with a lot of places, especially bigger places. Wouldn't have an excuse anymore to buy more guitars. Renato. Yeah. Yeah, you can try before you actually buy, and maybe not buy at all. Just try them all out. Thomas Powell, Brad Dean. How are you, Brad Dean? I saw a message from you. I keep trying to respond to it, but I keep getting interrupted, but I'm almost there. Hope you are well in the sunny Caribbean. I think you're in the Caribbean. And yeah, very, very jealous of that. Oh, Nick Hill, thank you for the super chat. Oh, I'm way back on the chat here. Older boogie market. Sometimes you need more. Jimbo Collins, hope you are well. Connor, hope you are well. Dylan, hope you are well. All you guys joining in here. What was Jimbo? Sometimes you need more than just the settings to get the tone shaped on your own. It's a great starting point, though, in terms of presets. Yeah, presets can be very useful. And they can, like I said, they can be very enlightening. Like, you're like, oh, that's how they go about it. Like maybe they're using with a preset, especially digital stuff now, it's so close to the real thing that you're like, oh, they use an EQ in the chain like this. How clever. I never would have thought of that. Or, maybe they use a double boost and they have the settings of the double boost in such a way that you're like, I never would have did that. That's how they do it. That's how they get the sound. So yeah, presets can be really fun that way in terms of like discovery, especially if you're willing to kind of, break them open, tinker around, see what's going on. The old Boogie Mark series had the graphic EQ post the preamp. Very powerful for shaping tone. Yeah, the post EQ in the messes, I've had a few of those Mark series amps, and I always found that like I had to use that graphic EQ to get a tone that was worth a damn. And it always sounded EQ'd, which was weird. Not bad. I'm not saying it sounded bad, but it definitely sounded like very sculpted. And it didn't have as much of an open sound. Very, focused sound, very like crushing palm mutes. But yeah, interesting design for sure, Cosman. I thought Noon was the natural EQ. Benoise 3. Noon is not. Noon is where the manufacturer tries to offer the most musically neutral voicing. They try to design the EQ circuit so that Noon is that. But when you turn an EQ up on a standard guitar amp, you're not adding any gain. It's all cut or dampening, unless it's a parametric EQ or some other EQ design that is an active circuit. But most of these EQs are passive designs, and they are, it's just taking gain away in some way, dampening down certain frequencies, or kind of turning off using a resistor or something like that. Which is, interesting to think about if you've never really kind of thought about before. But how you're thinking about, Noon being the position and then cut or boost, there is no boost unless it's a parametric EQ, and that is very rare to come by in guitar amps. You see it a lot more in bass amps. Interesting, because there was a long period of time that I had no idea. I had no idea about any of it. What do we got going on here? Keith, hey, too true, freaking hilarious. And he's so, well, my product, you like my product placement? It's like, it's not a product placement. It's my quest to be sponsored by Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. It's so good. It's got a skull on it. It's like the heaviest water ever. Not sponsored, but please sponsor me, Liquid Death. Anyway, I think they're just a marketing company. I don't even think they're a water company. They're just like, yeah, let's market water. Amazing. Renato, thanks for the tip. I'll watch the whole thing later. Is that probably one of Nick's videos? Or maybe can't even. Oh, so Darren, Iceman, he lives very rural or very much out in a remote area, and returning things is not as much of an option for him. And I completely understand that. We're not all, blessed with frequent mail and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know. Is that a blessing? I don't know. It's just a hyped media term that somehow has made its way into my vocabulary. But, bomb. So I think I'm kind of missing some comments here. Cosman, my last experiment had a bland tone using the SSL plugin, and using the built-in preset, the tone just popped. Previously, my patches were too hot to use that SSL preset. So yeah, a cool little tip here for guitar players. We're all guitar players to some extent. If you're producing guitars, the SSL E series EQ modules, they like what is it? The 2000 series? I think it's the 2000 series consoles. I've worked on them, like the actual consoles. They're amazing, but it's the E series SSL EQs. If you want a little bit of brightness, like the 2.4K, select 2.4K and boost it like 3 dB. And it boosts guitar upper mids like nothing else. The SSL EQ, it just has a character to it, and it's a famous thing to do. It's not like, this is not my setting. But yeah, it is unlike any other EQ. If you have the Slate bundle, there's an EQ in there. If you have the Waves bundle, there's a SSL EQ in there. Just anything that's modeled after the SSL E series modules. The EQ for guitars to get more bite, like brightness in the upper mids, where you can really dim down the extra high frequencies. Like you can use a low pass filter down at like 4K, 5K, and just use that SSL to brighten up that upper mid little boost section there. And it's amazing. It is the magic of many, many people. Ewer, how are you? Hope all is well. The heaviest water, liquid death, the heaviest water, Connor. Not sponsored. Please sponsor me. They'll never sponsor me. It'd be like, you are a fool and your laugh is strange. So we're going to move on to the next topic, the last topic. And then we're going to just have a Jamboree free for all, where it's just going to be comments and hanging out and all of that kind of stuff. But the last thing here is options. My homie Nick Hill and I, we talk about this a lot, and it ends up on in a lot of his videos and whatnot. And with a lot of times the focus of the topic is option paralysis. And, the more options that you have, the less you achieve, because you are paralyzed by too many options. You can't make a decision. And this is a very common thing. It's interesting. I think you need to experience option paralysis. I think you need, Nick often uses the example of IRs, impulse responses, guitar speaker cabinet impulse responses. And he has folders and folders and folders of them. I have folders and folders and folders of them too. I don't even use them. I used to use them a little bit more, but yeah. How do you pick one? And after you listen to like 10 of them, they all sound terrible. They none of them even sound good at all, because your ears fatigue, and it's like guitar frequency. So it's pretty harsh and all that kind of stuff. But option paralysis is a real thing. I think it's important to throw yourself at option paralysis and tweaking and knob twiddling and go through that for a while. Spend a couple months doing nothing but just trying tones out, trying lots of different tones out and tweaking and just being a total knob twiddler. And yeah, just kind of having, just going down the rabbit hole of options and being lost in them and getting into this thing of option paralysis and maybe not getting anywhere. Because something I notice is there are folks that before they have a lot of options, they assume that they need more options. I have no options. I need all of the options. I need to do everything. I need to try everything. I need to have all of these tones at my disposal. Usually not. Usually you're going to make one song, and maybe in one song there's going to be, maximum 3 or 4 tones. For me, I know that I'm a kind of minimalist guy. So for me, there's only maybe 3 tones plus a bass tone. Oh, am I going to sneeze? Whoa, bro. But I know that I'm a minimalist kind of person. My preference generally is to have one guitar sound and turn the boost on and off and use the volume control. So in effect, I guess having 3 tones through a sort of more dynamic approach, but that's not always the option, especially with the digital stuff. So options. Yeah. Going through tons of options, having option paralysis, do it, get to know it. It's where you'll probably develop your ears. Don't worry about not having options, but if you can dive into the world of options, you can do it so easy now with digital stuff. You got to be cool with computers. You don't have to be like my brother, who is a software architect. You do not have to be a software architect to use a computer. But all of you guys are on computers right now, listening or watching. This chat is on a computer. I guess a lot of it could be done on a phone, but you can even do guitar tones on phones. I'm curious, does anybody know if the positive grid stuff is still on iOS? Is that a thing? That was a big thing for a little while, but I don't know if it's a thing anymore. I always liked that idea. I've never had an iOS device, but I'm contemplating getting into it maybe for that reason, just to have a little phone and knock around, quick jamming in headphones. But dive in. Now's the time to do it if you're comfortable with a little bit of the technology. To be truthful, it's like, even if you're not comfortable with the technology, it's the perfect reason to dive in. Start with one thing, okay, I'm going to download whatever and plug my guitar in. You'll probably need an interface. If you don't have an interface, you should order an interface, get a simple one. Don't get the cheapest one, but don't get the most expensive one if you don't have, it depends how much money you have to spend. But it's usually a good idea to not get the absolute cheapest interface, because that usually means problems. But get something that's okay. You could probably do it for about $100 and get something that's going to be okay for a bit. You only need one channel to go in with a guitar. Having 2 channels in is a little bit better. And maybe having phantom power is cool too. But yeah, get a simple interface and dive into it. There is so much that you can do with plugins. It's amazing. For those of you who have gone through this is going to be the last topic, so we can kind of, riff on this for a bit. For those of you who have gone through the, trying every single thing and not feeling like you're getting anywhere, maybe having that option paralysis, or maybe you haven't figured out how to get the sound in your head, how to craft it yet. Or maybe, I don't know, like, where are you guys at with that? For me, I don't really care anymore. Like, manufacturers keep asking me if I want to use their plugins or use their stuff. And I'm like, I don't even care about amps. The stuff that already exists is fine. I don't need any more. I just want to write music. I just want to produce music. I don't want to fool around with amps anymore. Not to say that anybody, like, there's lots of people who are still being innovative in that space and doing cool stuff, but, it's just not exciting to me. It's way more exciting to write riffs, like to write and record riffs and, explore that, especially, tones are pretty easy to get. I don't even need the best ones in the world. They just have to be okay. Behringer. Yeah. Behringer, actually makes totally decent stuff. Behringer now is not the Behringer 10 years ago. So Cosman, bringing up a good one, there, good option, a decent option. I don't know how long it will be good for, but Behringer stuff is usually okay for at least for a while. And Jimbo Collins, they got Bias Effects on iOS still. Okay, good. Connor or Bias Effects. Okay. Behringer stuff is very good. Nick Hill, you guys are on it here. Bias amp for iOS, iPad is still a thing. Last time I checked. Anthony. Okay. Confirmations on all those things. Awesome. I really like Bias Effects. I don't like that, what is it? Positive Grid is the parent company. I don't like that they're focusing on that dumb practice amp that you need an app to run. I don't know. Not really into it. I wish they would just focus, like Bias Effects was great, and I don't know if they're continuing to develop that or if they've fully moved over to this practice app. What is it called? Spark? I'm not sure. Whatever they want to do. It's their company. I'm not, like whatever. I don't want to be a negative Nancy about it, but I thought Bias Effects was like a pretty good platform, in terms of having a lot of creative solutions in one place that was easy to use, that ran pretty efficiently on low powered systems. Like that was, I think, the magic of it. And it doesn't seem to be the focus anymore, but what do I know? I'm not really paying that much attention. And Thomas Powell is saying, until they make fun of you, who's going to make fun of you? Oh, for using a Behringer or for using Bias Effects? Synth Chris, how are you, man? I hope you are well. First interface was a Behringer upon Euphoria. UM2 was pretty decent. Yeah, the Behringer stuff is pretty decent. The Focusrite, Dr. John, how are you, Dr. John? He brings up Focusrite stuff. That's generally, I don't even have a Focusrite. I have a PreSonus. A lot of people trash PreSonus as well. I don't know. PreSonus has been nothing but good for me and to me. But different people have different experiences for different reasons. But the Focusrite stuff is usually what I recommend to people getting into recording, just the 2i2 or whatever. And they have better ones than that. They have the Claret. The reason though is generally it is a foolproof experience. You just plug any computer, could be a PC or a Mac. There's something about the refinement of the Focusrite experience where you just plug it in and things work. And just recently, it's actually almost a year ago now, but a friend of mine was attempting to get their computer going. They were on PC and they're a smart person. They use computers for design and art and all that kind of stuff. They use rather complicated applications and all this stuff, and they configure their own systems. And they were trying to get Reaper going, and they were using this sort of janky intermediary interface type of thing, and it just wasn't working. And I was like, just forget that. Get, the middle of the line Focusrite, and I guarantee it will just work. You'll plug it in, and within 5 minutes, you'll be off and running. And that was in fact the case. And that has been the case. That story has been essentially the story for countless people that I have kind of helped get up and going. Like I say, I use PreSonus stuff and I like it. I think it's fine. I think it's well priced. It's well made, all that kind of stuff. I'm not that picky. If it works, I like it. Is it the lowest noise, best interface in the world? No, it isn't. It's a PreSonus Audio Box 22 VSL. But I've made all the recordings that I have with it and it's fine. So yeah, get an interface and get with it. If it's a Behringer, get the Behringer. Get the one you can afford that is that is decent, not too cheap, and get into it. What about the tune track? Cosman says, what about that tune track thing? The one Ola and folks did tone mix presets for anyone ever use it. He's talking about the Easy Mix. I think Nick Hill illustrates the Easy Mix stuff. And the Easy Mix stuff. I have a friend, Mike Westuba. Shout out to Mike Westuba. I haven't talked to him for a long time. I hope he is well. But he's a pal, a recording engineer and mix guy. Pretty good mastering guy too, although that's not his vocation, but well-to-do in the music production world. And he did just a test mix using entirely Easy Mix products, and the mix was great. This was a little bit ago. This is already probably about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. But he just used presets, and he has an ear, he has a developed ear, but he was able to kind of just choose decent presets. He also recorded the stuff to a reasonable quality, but it was acoustic drums, everything tracked, and, guitars and bass DI, and just Easy Mix, and it sounded really, really good. I was blown away, and I'm sure it wasn't even the height of that technology at that time. So presets can work, and the Easy Mix stuff has an express interest in getting you going quickly, especially if your interest is not being a recording person, a production person. That is a real thing. There are a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of you, who are not really interested in any of that. And you're just like, I just want to be creative. I want to focus on guitar, and the other stuff, I just want it to sound okay. I just want to get it sounding so the vibe is there and it doesn't sound like a deflated balloon. And, so I can get my ideas down and really get jazzed on guitar playing. So if that's the case, then the Easy Mix stuff and keeping it simple is probably a great option. Hi there, Moet. How are you? I hope all is well. I'm yet to make the Bunn laughing compilation. You need to make it. It's funny that you bring it up, because I started making a laugh compilation, just a really short one. I've been moving footage to a whole bunch of off of hard drives onto new hard drives, because I'm on this new computer system. And I was like, oh, okay, now's the time to kind of set aside all the clips for this laugh compilation thing, because it'd just be fun. But it'd be even more fun if somebody else made it. So yeah, Moet, you're in charge. You are the CEO of the laugh compilation committee. And I hope that it makes me laugh. Sean Heath, good morning. How are you? Sean Heath, I gave you a big shout out at the beginning of this episode. I hope you are well. I was bigging up your video about string length after the nut, and your experiment and its findings. I can't share that enough. I think it's just such a great experiment and very insightful. But Sean, I hope you're well. Sean is joining us from Germany, and if where you guys are, let us know where you're from. That would be kind of fun if you want to. You don't have it'd just be nice to know where everybody's at on the globe. Give this man some likes. Barry, how are you? Tim Wheeler, how are you? Hope all is well there, duders. I have the camera and the comments kind of close. So it's not super awkward like me. Hey, how's it going, guys? And so I can kind of read and hang out with you guys a little bit more effectively, a little bit more personably. Is that a thing? If you guys like this video, definitely hit that like button and all that kind of stuff, because if you like what's going on here, it helps what's going on here get out there. So yeah, if you're into that, that would be cool. No pressure, but it's all about hanging out. So, and I'm hanging out with my liquid death. You know, I'm murdering my thirst right now, and not sponsored, but I seek to be sponsored. If you guys are drinking beers, it's Friday night. Drinking beers, sipping wine, you know, smashing ciders, whatever you're doing. Drinking milk, orange juice. I don't know. What are you doing? Damon Iceman, he uses Easy Mix. I use the Easy Mix crap, and it's okay. I'm not a sound engineer, and I'm too stupid to learn that stuff. I don't think so. I think you're wrong. I think you're more than smart enough. I think maybe you're just more interested in other things, like maybe just playing guitar, and you're like, I'm not excited about mixing, which is totally cool. Totally cool. But I doubt you're too stupid for it. Just what you shared tells me that you're a pretty smart guy. Would be cool to not worry about the tones side of it. Yeah. Cosman brings up a good point. I think so. The way that I work with stuff, this might be insightful for other people, and I think a lot of people do it this way, but I kind of get a pretty good mix going right away before I really start working on something. If I'm opening up a new session, I don't have on this computer anything to show yet. And I haven't moved that drive over, but like I do have Reaper here and the desktop. So this is a fresh install of Reaper 6, and nothing's really going on yet. But typically I will get a mix going right away. You know, drums and all that kind of stuff, and guitar sounding pretty good, so that when I'm playing, the vibe is there. And I will work in a session like it's a tape machine. So I will do song after song after song. And the thing about Reaper is it has a beautifully flexible timeline. So you can just drop a marker and say, from here on in, the time signature and tempo is this. And you can keep changing that, no problem. And it's just a very elastic timeline, and it's beautiful for working in a sequence like that. If you use, I've said this before, if you use automation, if you like to use automation, this way of working is no good. It sucks. And you have to do one song per session if you use a lot of automation. If you use any automation. I do not use automation. I'm not a fan. I'm not against it in any way. For my music, I would rather record the music dynamically and record it as it is going to play out. So however many tracks that takes, if it takes 100 tracks to do that, it never does. But let's say hypothetically, it took 100 tracks for me to dynamically represent my music without automation. I would take the 100 tracks over the automation any day. And I always find it feels more like a band in a room than a bunch of plastic. I find automation doesn't always, but it can sound very plasticky. I'm very averse to that plastic, ultra commercial mixing kind of stuff. So you can work that way. You can get a mix going and work on the same timeline, and you just always have a vibe. But like I say, if you like automation and you like slick mixing, it might not work for you because, for obvious reasons. But it definitely, for me, it's a fluid way of working, and it's easy to show up and just open up a session. And it's like good to go. It reduces the barriers to creativity, and it also increases just the overall fluidity of my creativity. So we got some info on where folks are coming from. Tyler's from San Diego. Barry's from Wisconsin. Hey, Barry, do you know Nick Hill, like actually in person? Because he's a Wisconsin buddy. Connor saw that video, very intrigued about the empirical results from the experiment in the tolerance if the tolerances were smaller. Yeah, it would be cool if could control the tolerances. Connor is talking about Sean's experiment of the influence of more string past the anchor point on a guitar, anchor point being either the nut or the bridge, if more string influences tension. I can say empirically, without a doubt, no, there is no influence on tension. The tension of the string at that pitch for the mass of the string is the tension of the string, and nothing beyond the anchor point is going to influence it. It will influence other things, but I'm stubborn and I've already done all of the, experiments. I just never recorded them. But I like Sean's because it achieves the experiment in a very accessible way that is easy to relate to. So that's, I think, what makes that experiment really great. But yeah, check out his video. We'll bring it up here one more time. Bam. What do we got? Safari. I think it's over here. Bam. Heavy tones. Yeah. Sean's video about bam. So you can see here, bam. He's got this just it's very kind of makeshift kind of thing. But what's beautiful about it is other people can take this experiment further. And I highly suggest, it's the main reason I'm so jazzed on it. It's a very accessible thing. And the findings are quite good. They are not too unwieldy sort of tolerances, but they don't really need to be to verify what's going on. But what it does say as well is you can very easily repeat this experiment and refine the tolerances. So I highly recommend, if you have the resources and time to do so, definitely do it. Check out his video though. Sean Heath, The Myth About String Tension. It's a good video. Since you mentioned Sean's an awesome guy. He deserves all the subs that he can possibly get, because he builds guitars, builds basses and all that kind of stuff. And he's just such a good dude. So I hope he gets tons of subscribers because he does cool stuff. So what do we got here? Tim, what up, Nick? Tyler Adams, new gear reduced my riff time. Yeah. Tyler Adams brings up a interesting point. He says new gear reduced my riff time. Yeah, every time there's a change, like recently I just got this Mac Mini. I need to move computers. I was on a Mac Pro, a cheese grater Mac Pro, the old original cheese grater Mac Pro. And it was a maxed out machine, like 32 gigs of RAM, dual processors, 12 cores, all Xeon, top of the line, SSDs, like everything you could think of is maxed out, but it's old tech. So it just wasn't performing and problems are starting to happen. And I upgraded to this little Mac Mini, which destroys the Mac Pro, which is so funny. The new M1 Mac Mini, it makes the computer look stupid. But yeah, switching over new gear, it really has put a dent in things this past month with computer problems and various tech problems and changing over systems and stuff like that. This is a serious thing. When you add new gear or change gear, it can be a major disruption. Hopefully you're ready for it, that there's always a contingent for it. In some cases you can't afford a contingent, or you can't afford to be ready for it. In my case, I'm just kind of doing what I can do as I do it. So it's been a huge disruption, and part of the reason, like, I'm still trying to finish the videos that I have started on the old Mac Pro. There's 3 videos on there that I just need to finish this weekend, so I can kind of put this computer to rest before anything really bad happens. So yeah, changing gear. It's I don't know, if you find something that works, yeah, stick with it. We talked about on a previous episode, oh, maybe it was a Nick Hill episode, friend of mine, he's a music producer, Greg Dawson. We're not super close friends, but we're well acquainted. And he works on tons of like, you know, high profile music, albums, all that kind of stuff. And actually he recorded that Mare record. He recorded a lot of stuff. He still records a lot of stuff, but he uses a really old computer. As far as I know, he's still on an XP Windows machine and running an old version of Cubase and old plugins or whatever. But that system has never, ever been on the internet, and it has never done anything but music. So he's been very protective of the system and very mindful to keep it running at its full potential. And his stuff sounds awesome. Nobody bats an eye at his XP machine. So you can use old things for a long time, especially if they are used for a singular usage. And yeah, not prohibiting, but the less time you spend changing or adding new gear, the more time you spend developing your craft and creating new music and understanding your system to the fullest of its potential. So there's definitely, you know, new gear can be cool, or upgrading or whatever that can up your game. But also like staying the course and sticking to it and really knowing your stuff, that can also up your game. It depends. Like there's a lot of variables there to take into consideration. So, but it's a great topic to think about, to muse on. Turboplasma, I'm sitting on the moon waiting for Doge to arrive. Doge. I love that Doge thing. I wish Doge never went away. That Doge. Sean Heath Connor, I have an idea for how to do it more apples to apples. Oh, Sean, he's already got an idea for a further, more highly refined string tension experiment. Of course he does. He is an engineer, and he has all of the processes and strategies sorted, and the mathematics. You gotta add some mathematics to it next time, Sean, just to make it more like official. Where, you know, if L equals the length of the string and M equals the mass, and, you know, intention, you know, vibrating pitch is this, and da 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 da. I don't know exactly what the equation would be for measuring tension on an instrument string. I can't imagine it being that complex. But so Tyler Adams says, Reaper is really reducing my riff time while I figure out drums. I'm so slow at programming drums. Well, I might be able to help with that. I'm like, one of the videos that I have in work right now is a kind of how to put drums together from a sort of beginner perspective. I've done some videos on drums, on how to get going with drums, but I maybe made some unfair assumptions that most people already had an idea of, you know, the very base kind of level stuff. But I think maybe focusing on some of that stuff would be very helpful, because there are certain simple considerations that might be like the aha for some people. It's like, that makes it so much easier. So yeah, there's a video about drums. Hopefully that will be helpful for you, or at least someone, because yeah, I hear this a lot, Mr. Adams, the drumming thing. If you're not a drummer, and especially trying to interpret it through MIDI and mouse clicks, it can be a little bit of a difficult thing before you really find your stride, really find your method. So I feel it. I'm going to try and help. Tyler, getting a template. Yeah. Templates are definitely a thing. But there's so much to it. I do not. I'm from the Appleton area. Oh, okay. Barry Poser does not know Nick and Barry are in Wisconsin, and they are not hanging out, going for, putting on headbands and going for walks. You guys should get matching headbands and go for walks and film an episode of Behind the Mix together in headbands, matching ones, probably camo, so that no one can see the headbands because they're camouflage. I don't even know what I'm talking about. You can't see it, but there's a nut under that chisel. Yeah, you can see it I think from the thumbnail, you can see it a little bit more clearly. Anyway, yeah, keep an eye out for future videos from Sean, because it seems like he's going to try and further demonstrate these things, along with many other things. He just put out a video about bridges, these kinds of bridges for headless guitars and whatnot. So yeah, check it out. Jason Oshowski, how are you, brother? Hope all is well. Good to see you in the stream. Hello from Toronto. Jason Oshowski is a Michigan brother who is originally from Toronto. So yeah, nice to see Toronto homies in the chat. Majestic PBJ, yes, I need to know how to program drums faster and more efficiently. Yeah, this video is all about that, like the basics of, of getting going with it and hopefully illustrating how to get to decent musical results that are not just boring beats pretty quick. There's a lot of clues in the music, but going about how you capture your music, how you capture your riffs and whatnot, going about it in a semi-strategic way helps in terms of being able to craft the beats. So, and I talk about this in the video. Hopefully, I hope to get that video done this week. I don't know when it's going to go up, or this weekend. There's 3 videos that are probably going to finish this weekend. Videos. Steel City Studios. How are you, man? Mr. V-Man, I hope you are well. How's it going? Great series. Loving it. Oh, thanks, man. I love doing it. It's kind of like it all happens together. It's everybody's ideas kind of coming together, and we kind of just riff on them. It's a riffing kind of show, different kinds of riffs. We're riffing on the riffing. It's pretty fun though. I got my Liquid Death, which makes everything better because I frequently need to murder my thirst. Once again, not sponsored, but seeking sponsorship, Liquid Death. Totally serious. Imagine I got a Liquid Death sponsorship. They'd be like, dude, your riffs are so heavy. We need them to be the riffs of Liquid Death. I don't even think my riffs are very heavy. I don't really make heavy music. I make melodic music that is maybe a little bit gnarly sometimes. Anyway, the easy Cosman says okay. Turbo Plasma Chicken. How are you, Turbo Plasma? I hope all is well. I've said this a million times, but hello. How are you? Taking the buzzkill and flow kill out of programming drums. Yeah, that is definitely the goal. Yeah, it really sucks. You put down a riff and you're like, oh, this is a sick riff. And you're like, okay, I need to put some drums to it. And maybe you have like a bunch of MIDI loops, but a lot of times what ends up happening is people have to kind of like really switch their guitar riffs to fit the pre-existing MIDI loops, or they don't have a MIDI loop library that represents like, things outside of standard gent or standard metal, and which is the most common MIDI libraries for metal kinds of drums. So like for me personally, there isn't a single MIDI library that I've ever heard that I would ever be able to use for anything. So I started making them. I'm like, I'm making them a bit different than they exist out there in the world. But I'm like, people are suffering. I'm like, I'm going to try and fix it somehow, but also going to just make the video to try and give people a heads up on how to go about it so that they can have a solid starting point and develop from. You know, I don't know how effective it's going to be. The goal is for it to be as effective as possible, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's a tragic thing. Lots of good riffs, and they just get spoiled on terrible drum abilities or terrible drum libraries. Which did you get, Bunn? M1. So Thomas Powell is asking about the M1 Mac. For some reason, I was thinking about Mashocks for a second. And you and I both had, well, you sold your Mashok, but for a time there, Thomas Powell, we had the same Mashok. You had Lundgrens in yours, though. And I had crappy Invaders. Terrible. You made the better decision. But the M1, I got the M1, the 16 gigs of RAM, and the maximum amounts of cores in all areas. I got the small hard drive though, because I use a pile of external SSDs, and it's all Thunderbolt 4. So the bus out to hard drives is very fast. So there's no bottlenecks there. And, you know, I don't work on 6K video or anything like that, so I don't have to worry about speed that way. But yeah, M1 Mini, Mac Mini, 16 gigabyte model, everything maxed out except the hard drive, because I personally don't need the bigger hard drive, internal hard drive. But yeah. So far, everything works. I'm going to be doing an actual short video, just because a lot of people are asking about the M1 Mini and Reaper, and, you know, getting all the plugins, like what plugins work, what doesn't, all that kind of stuff. Because for those of you who don't know, this new Apple Mac M1 series, it will run a lot of the previous apps in a translation layer, meaning its new architecture is proprietary, and applications developed moving forward need to be developed for the current architecture. The technology is called SoC, System on a Chip. Everything is integrated, for those of you who are nerds and understand what I'm talking about. But so yeah, moving forward, developers have to kind of catch up with it. However, Macintosh was nice enough to, I don't know if Mac developed this or if a third party developed it, but Mac offers it as a standard feature. Like when you try to install something that is a previous iteration, an Intel-based x86 architecture, which is the previous chip type, the Intel chip type. If you try to install that stuff, it just a little pop-up the very first time. It says, this is this. Do you want to install Rosetta 2? Rosetta 2 is a translator, and it runs as an emulation layer for old versions of software. And so far, my experience is everything works that I've tried, but I haven't tried everything. Like my migration to the machine is slow. So I will have more information on the fitness of the M1 Macintosh for producing music in Reaper with TuneTrack and like solid state or Steven Slate drums. I am predominantly a TuneTrack user, but yeah, and also the Steven Slate plugins, you know, how they work, because they are running in a translation layer. There is no M1 version of those for sure. And the Reaper version that you need to use is the Intel version if you want maximum plugin compatibilities. Some things to know there. So far, everything is positive. This is all happening right now on the M1, and So far, it seems like things are okay. We'll see what happens. Another big question with the M1s, I'm going to put this to bed after this little one point. Big question with the M1 is noise, because it doesn't have a 3-prong power cable. And the other thing it does not have is a brick. It does not have a power supply. There's probably some kind of power supply stage inside, very, very, very minor. The reason is these new machines require incredibly low power to run. They're very, very cold. They run very cold, and they run very efficiently, incredible efficiency. So they don't need the same amount of power to operate as older computer concepts. With the SoC, the system on a chip, the integrated chip architecture, it's very efficient, uses very low power. There's no power brick, no power supply. So the noise thing that people are anticipating seems to be non-existent so far. I was playing guitar today all day, and it seems like I have less noise than usual. I have not vetted that 100% yet. I will report with greater insight moving forward. But if you're interested in getting into these M1 Max, because they're very inexpensive and incredibly powerful, so far they seem okay. But I'm careful not to make a full recommendation yet. Shahid, ironically, the idea that all you need is one guitar and the follow-on thought, the right one led me down the path of guitar building, which has nothing to do with making music. So beware. Yeah. You and I have talked about this, Sean. We kind of come up with distractions, but in a way, I think they're worthwhile distractions for at least for a moment. And a moment could be a couple years. I've definitely sidebarred in my own music life this video thing, getting into that and learning it and all that kind of stuff. I'm still learning it, but getting into video was a major sidebar to my music, and it delayed music production for a while. And this past year, I've started to kind of get back up on that. But sometimes we need to sidebar because what it represents for our total path is maybe a bigger opportunity could be an opportunity for creativity, or maybe commerce, or otherwise, or maybe a combination of all of the above. But the sidebar is not always a bad thing. It's like, thankfully, we've spent a good chunk of our life playing guitar, playing instruments, and we can kind of play them. I'm not a very good guitar player, but I can play it well enough that I can kind of put more attention on, say, making videos, because I want to use the video medium to expand my world as a musician. And you want to put time into guitar building to expand your world as a musician in a completely different way. And you're also adding a video layer to what you're doing as well. So all of these things are positive. Hopefully it doesn't take us completely away from the initial inspiration, but even if it did, and we're still happy, like if it takes you away, but the thing that it takes you away to is awesome, that's awesome. So I don't know, don't feel guilty if you feel good. But if you feel guilty and you don't feel good in whatever your path is with whatever distractions you have, then try and make a change. And, you can reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk about those things. If you just need a pal and you don't have somebody in your life that is like, I can't talk about this crap with anyone, I'm happy to talk about it. I do have, I don't have all the time in the world, but I generally try to make time for these sorts of things to some extent. So you can reach out to me and maybe we can kind of further connect the whole community. And people in the chat are always cool to chat and to get to know. So yeah, Thomas Powell, maybe you could find somebody on Fiverr to program some drums. Yeah, that's an option. So Renato, that's a cool, I'm seeing other comments here. Sorry. That would be a cool experiment. You know, a lot of like bigger YouTubers have done those videos. Like I hired somebody on Fiverr to do this. And sometimes the cheaper person they hired is the best person. Could be making videos, could be doing music stuff, whatever. Like I've seen a bunch of videos like that. The only thing is there's a good chance on Fiverr that you're not going to find like your people. And what I mean by that is like people kind of really get where you're coming from. That's the biggest challenge. Like one of the reasons I personally started doing this video thing, was to connect with people more like myself. And one of the things that's interesting about it is to date, I haven't really met anyone in terms of like the musical side that I would be able to seamlessly kind of work with creatively that I know of yet. There's lots of people that I've met that I can work with in some way creatively, but in terms of what I'm interested in expanding on and exploring, I've yet to kind of, as to my knowledge anyway, meet someone who kind of, you know, has some toes in the pool that I have my toes in, so to speak. So it's a very difficult thing to find your people and get the vibe that you're looking for. Depends on the kind of material and how picky. Maybe I'm too picky or whatever. I feel like I'm not that picky of a person, but maybe. But the Fiverr route is an interesting thing in terms of maybe experimenting to get some drums made for you. But if you can find someone who's like in the wheelhouse, who's dipping their toes in a similar pond to you, creatively, aesthetically, you'll usually get the best results from that. A lot more drummers now are getting into programming. And so you might be able to actually just find a drummer. A lot of times what ends up happening is guitar players meet other guitar players who also program. Probably more guitar players know how to program drums than drummers, but which is interesting. But that's an assumption. I don't have any data to back up that claim, by the way. Just being full disclaimer. But yeah, Fiverr, forums, Facebook groups. What is the other thing that me and Nick Hill are doing? A Discord group. We're doing a Discord group, and you can find people in Discord groups, you know, especially if it's a Discord group that is centered on music that you are similarly interested in. So maybe you can meet someone in our Discord group. It isn't officially launched yet, but hopefully this week it will launch. It will be in a beta, in a testing thing. But yeah, try and meet some people, and here is a good place. You know, maybe just put out a call. So here's the thing. Them chugs for Sean. I can't remember. I can't see where the origin is, but if you are in the chat and you're really comfortable with programming drums and you would be maybe interested in trying to program drums for someone else's track, maybe even just one track, like as a collaborative experiment, maybe just say, hey, I'm up for trying a drum programming experiment with somebody. Just make yourself be known. I think it's important to be clear on the conditions of your involvement on both sides, because time can be limited for some people, and creative endeavors, sometimes people can get, things can get weird if you don't lay out the criteria of your working creative relationship in the beginning, right up front. So yeah. Drums, damn it. Thomas Powell, he'll always talk Mashak. Yeah, Thomas Powell, he was the first guy in Toronto. He currently lives in Vancouver, or in British Columbia at least, or maybe Alberta. I'm not sure exactly where you are this minute, but he lives out west in Western Canada. But while he lived in Toronto, he was the only other guy I knew who had a baritone, and I had a couple baritones, but he had he had the first one that I had that was, I was committed to. He also had the same model, which was the Mashak. That was really hard to describe for some reason. And you'd think I'd have an advantage because I'm not drinking beers. I'm drinking liquid death. I'm murdering my thirst. Not sponsored, but please sponsor me. There we go. But yeah, we'll always talk Mashak, Thomas Powell. Yeah, those new M1s are awesome. Lower noise floor, always rad. Yeah, I have not done full testing, Anthony, on the M1 and its noise floor, noise contribution, anything like that. My first impression is that it's good, but I have not spent enough time. I need to make a track, and I'm going to do a little bit of that this weekend. So yeah, I'm going to sort of sign off on any more kind of verdicts about the M1. So far, I'm very impressed, but it's too early to say anything significant. Cosman, I will have an M1 later this year for sure. Yeah, I think it's, Macintosh. It's the first time I've expressed this with a lot of my friends who are creatives, who are artists, musicians, video people, all that kind of stuff. It's the first time in technological history that I don't feel punished for being a creative person in that way. Like traditionally, even if you were at a lower level in music production or whatever, like let's say you had no interest at all in being a commercial success in any way, either as an engineer or as a music artist. You're just like, I just want to make the best music I can for the purpose of my own, my own love of it. Well, it costs a lot of money to have a reasonable machine to really kind of hammer through it. And if you get into video, even worse, the specs for video have to be pretty significant to do pretty decent video quality, and artistically. And it has always felt in my adult life, even previous to being an adult, like when I was a teenager, it was very early in the technological curve of current society. And everything was like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars out of reach for what I was interested in. So you just kind of swallowed it up and went without, or you spent a lot of money going to studios or whatever. And like I say, if your interest is not being like a super successful artist, you're just like, I just want to make art. Or I just want to make what I want to make. But it doesn't mean I don't want to make it good. I want to make it pretty good. It just was so cost prohibitive, and you kind of had to be in a special situation financially or otherwise in order to do it. But now with the software is so good, and now that these machines are coming out, it seems like that whole paradigm has shifted, and creatives now have access to these bare bones. This is the bare bones of Macintosh. These are the crappy machines. It's only going to be, everything they release after this is going to be way better. So if this is their crap, it's the most crushing technology ever. You can't upgrade it. You can't service it. There is a downside. But the other thing is it should require less servicing because it runs so cold. So there's that part of the equation to think about as well. So yeah, it's the first time in history where I feel like that technological barrier is just like obliterated. And I can have this, this Mac Pro, this was a $10,000 Macintosh in its day, like 2012 or 2011, mid 2011, Mac Pro cheese grater, maxed out, everything just to the max. And yeah, it was, I think the bill for this was $9,980 some dollars, including the taxes. But this is a stupid amount of money. Like, for what? Like, it lasted almost 10 years. It's going to be 10 years this November. So, and it has done an incredible amount of work. And it's just starting to show its age this year. So, like, significantly where it's problematic. But yeah, first time in history that we're not being punished by, our technological needs, which is just such an incredible thing. I'm pretty thankful for it. I don't know if Apple, the company, is really aware of like what it means for creatives. I think they do, but they're kind of weird. They're a weird company, weird culture. Who knows? Who knows what they know? I don't know. But maybe you could find somebody on Fiverr. Oh, okay, already did that part. Great hardware advice. I'm setting up a new iMac for my home studio. This is Jason Oshosky. He's setting up a new iMac for his home studio. Tune track as well on your recommendation and videos. Keep coming, please. Yeah, this year the focus is going to be much more on the doing than the gear. Using baritone guitars, we'll probably see some more, like a few gear demos here and there, but mostly on the using, how to use things, what to think about in using them, how to get, better or worse results, all that, how to set things up, all that kind of stuff. I'm a little bit burnt out on the demos. I feel like the demos aren't very smart. Like, they're not very interesting. It's fun to do the cinematic recording of them, certain parts of it, but even that, it becomes repetitive after a time. So yeah, more emphasis on helpful videos this year. I've always done them, but I want to do way more of them because I feel the pain when people are like, I just can't get going with this thing. I'm like, yes, you can. You need to do it. And a lot of times just having a little leg up, a little bit of insight on this one thing can be revolutionary for so many people. That's been the case for me. Something that I never really talk about is there was a time where I remember clearly where I had this opportunity to actually mix live bands. I'd never done such a thing, but for some reason, someone saw it in me that this was a thing that I could do. And it freaked me. Like, the prospect of it was really exciting, but I was so choked up by it. And I looked at the console and it was just all these rows of, I didn't even see it as rows. I just saw it as so many knobs and so many cables and so much to think about. And then the interpersonal stuff of like talking to bands and coordinating things that way and all this sort of thing. And I blew the opportunity. And I could have started on that when I was like 21 or something like that, 20. I was, actually earlier. I think I was like 19. Anyway, I blew it because I was overwhelmed with it and I was looking at it completely the wrong way. There was no computers for making music yet. Not like that. Not like today. Nothing like today. There was like Ataris for sequencing MIDI and that's about it. Amigas for doing something similar. But yeah, sometimes you just having like a perspective of like this one thing can shift your whole realm of thinking. And you're just like, oh man, I see it all. And it's such an amazing thing. So I want to focus personally on sharing those kinds of things because it sucks not being able to do it. Cosmetic or just hire Delta Empire. So Cosman brings up an interesting point. Like you could just, like you can hire drummers. And what's surprising is how inexpensive it is. Like a really, really pro drummer usually doesn't have to spend a lot of time on your track. And, you know, of course, like if there's revisions, they will charge you for revisions and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of times they're going to nail it and knock it out of the park really quickly. And, you know, for a couple $100 sometimes you can hire a pretty great drummer. So that is an option that's on the table. If you have a little bit of liquid capital, you know, we're all adults. I don't know, like for me personally, the things that I do are costly, so I can't spend money on things like that. But if you're only playing guitar, maybe you have like less costs in your creative endeavors and you can afford to part with a couple $100 a month and just hire out a drummer for every track that you write. Maybe you write it with like loose drums and be like, here, it's like, do your thing with this track. And whether or not they take the gig, I'm not sure how picky people are in terms of taking the gig, but you could hire, there's a lot of drummers that are for hire that are really pro, that are somewhat famous, that will just take the gig because it's an easy $500 for them or easy $300 for them. So yeah, worth exploring. Gabe the bassist, how are you? I recently started using double drop C and matching the bass an octave lower. I want to hear it, Gabe. I think, yeah, we're connected in email. Send me a link of this madness, because that just sounds insane. Cosman, I'd be happy to help. I may not be the greatest, but happy to help. So Cosman's putting himself out there for drum stuff. If someone's looking to maybe collaborate with someone who knows a little bit about drumming, drum programming, etc., Cosman might be available. Talk to him. Aaron Cyborg Wang, new to BO. Thanks for all the awesome info. Oh, you're welcome, man. It's like trying my best to get it out there. And, you know, welcome to the BO thing. It's just the Bunn. It's just a segment of the Bunn. But yeah, I'm stoked that you dig it. Turbo Plasma Chicken, GTG, gotta go. Stay awesome and be stoked, folks. Yeah, you too there, Turbo Plasma. I hope all is well. Gabe Bassist, yeah, send me those links. I want to hear what you are doing because that sounds wild. Gang, I'm going to knock it down here. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to shut her down. My voice is starting to get kind of raw. But I hope you are all well. I thank you very much for hanging out. I hope there was something in tonight's topic and tonight's post chat that was, you know, somewhat interesting, fun. Somehow I zoomed into the screen 4,000%. Anyway, we're going to take care of that later. But yeah, I hope you're well. Have a good night and a good weekend. And yeah, I hope you're having fun with your riffs and going super low. And even if you're not going super low, I hope you're having fun with your riffs. Have an amazing weekend. And we do this every week on Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I guess that would be 10 o'clock p.m. No, not 10 o'clock. Be 8 o'clock Central Time. 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, be well. Have a good weekend. And thank you very much for the super chats. And thank you very much for hanging out. I hope you are well. Cheers. There we go.